Good morning, everybody. Welcome to First Center, First Church. It's nice to see people here. It's a good sign, people getting out and back into the churches, the spiritual centers. I was listening to Jimmy's announcements, and thank you, Reverend Judith, for the opening, what we call now affirmative prayer. I want to add to the announcements. Jimmy was talking about the class that we do on Wednesday night. Solomon Wells has got training in addiction, mental health, spirituality, and we're not just doing a class on addiction, so I'm not to correct Jimmy, but what we envision is this particular class to be a class where we can be talking about empowered living, and he's expert in all kinds of things, family dynamics, how to work on better relationships, better communication, boundaries, codependency, a lot of things that could be very useful for any of our families or people you might know. We haven't fully developed the program because we're getting through, it was a 12-week series, and we're coming, I think, towards probably the 9th week. So stay tuned on that, because we'll have a list of topics, and that might be something you want to pay attention to. This morning, first of all, I want to say we have a great crowd, and we thank you for being here. We know we're reaching over 200 people a month now, which is amazing. We might be reaching more because we haven't got all the statistics from all the websites, so that's great. Jimmy mentioned that we've noticed an increase in donations, which is really good, because a lot of what we've been doing in the past year or two is what I'll call an act of faith. We went from being 5-6 years ago, we were a center, we depended really on the people who showed up. Down at the Lincoln Center, we rented a space, and at that time, we started to notice the donations weren't covering the rent, and then we went through to a place called Subud in Chelsea. In a similar way, we were starting to grow, and then COVID happened, so we're here now with a new reality, and the reality is we're going to be a hybrid community, and what that means is we're always going to have people like yourselves here in the audience, and we're most likely always going to have a much larger audience, which will be all over the world. And so we embrace change, and to that end, this talk, Raymond Charles Barker, our founder, he talked in the end, he's always talking about people making donations, and I don't push that quite as much, but it's important for us to at least tell you how, if you are so inclined. Jimmy has set up Zelle, which I've never used, and other ways for people to contribute if they want to, or they can send a check to the center. That being said, we don't have any requirements. You don't have to participate financially. Many people are just learning, or they're trying to improve their lives, and maybe you're not in a position to be able to do any help financially. So the big thing is that you're here, and if you're here and you listen, and we can give you something of value, it will help your life overall. It will help your success. It will help your prosperity. And then, there will be opportunities to support us if you so wish. So that's all I'm going to say about money for today. I want to talk about one of Barker's lessons, which I thought I went over he did another one that was very close to this about a month or two ago, but it was slightly different, and I added a few things to it. So here we go. I wanted to read first an opening that used to be read, well, it was sung and it was read at the old First Church years ago. I'm always reminded of Theodora Parker, who passed away, because I would often have her say it when she was here. And it starts out We build a new tomorrow. We draw the pattern clear. We make our plans with wisdom, for mind is ever here. Our thinking makes our future. Our actions pave the way. We build a new tomorrow on the patterns we form today. So that's something to think about. So in this lesson, Raymond Charles Barker was speaking about happiness and how to get happy, stay happy, and how to live the affirmative life. We talk in more modern day language of living the affirmative life. Ernest Holmes used that phrase too, and what it means. It's definitely a practice. And we don't do it perfectly, but what we strive to do is live every hour of each day filled with some sense of awareness or a greater awareness of this presence. Some call it a higher power. So if you attempt to connect, right, in practice, in so doing, we're filled with a sense of awe, connection, wonder. Your life really, celebration. You tap into it and you realize that there's good, and there's good here, and there's good now. In every moment that we are conscious, we strive to remember. Now, you remember me quoting Louise all the time, where there's a lyric in a song, remembering and forgetting. Now, if you can stay in some type of place each day where you remember a little bit more often that you're one with the one, then your life is going to really work really well. So I wanted to say the trick, and of course we don't really have any tricks, but the practice is if you can tune in a little bit more and remember, I am one with this, I am one with this, and it responds to me, right? That'll bring you far along the road. If we're always operating on an unconscious level, spirit is still there guiding us. But, Ernest Holmes would say there's power that we have to use. So if we can, we want to tap into it. We want to find means and methodologies to remember that I am one with that. And as you do, you're inviting that guidance in. There's a quote from the ancient Greeks, which I have always loved. I don't think I highlighted it for you today, but it's very simple. Summoned or not summoned, it is here. I really like that one. Of course, I've seen it probably 20 times over 40 years, but I encountered it again this weekend. Summoned or not summoned, it is here. So that's something you might want to think about today. It's always there. It's always there. And more importantly, it's always there within you. Because you can be in quite a story thinking, my God, my life has gone to hell. We get into whoppers of stories. But there is that presence, that power that's available always. So there comes my Greek quote for you today. Summoned or not summoned, it is here. Affirmative prayer, as most of you know, it's our particular prayer process. Not that, there's a lot of prayer processes that are perfectly valid, but the one we use is called affirmative prayer. It used to be taught as spiritual mind treatment. Either way, affirmative prayer is not just asking for things, like before you go to bed, and affirmative prayer is not about pleading or begging for anything from God or a God above. You might recall John Calvin, maybe not. You'd have to remember history from the 1500s, but he started Calvinism. And he said prayer is an attitude toward life. And that would probably describe affirmative prayer in a way too. It's an attitude towards life. It's having a positive expectancy, really. It doesn't matter if you remember who he is, but he asked a great question. What is the chief end of humankind? Was one of Calvin's great questions. And he had a great answer. His answer was to enjoy God forever. So it's like communing in that sense that I am connected with it. I thought, what a beautiful consciousness, what a beautiful idea. So what is the chief end of humankind? And think of yourself. Okay, we're all here for, 7, 8 decades. Maybe if you're lucky, you have you might have a couple more, who knows? So what is the end? Is it just to amass riches and wealth and fame? I don't think so for most people. It's to have happiness and peace, I would think. His answer is, as you commune with this presence, to enjoy God forever. Yes, he said to enjoy. With him, it wasn't to fear anything in any way. And see, in traditional religions, and I think it's a lot of them, I study a lot of them, but I can't speak for all of them. But in traditional religions, it wasn't to enjoy God forever. There was a lot of things built into those systems, involving fear, and if you don't do this, this will happen or that'll happen. So the emphasis here in our class today from Barker originally, The Art of Success, and even bringing in John Calvin, is to enjoy your life and to find joy in your life. It wasn't to be experiencing fear day by day and doubt and worry. So we want to enjoy this thing, this entity or spirit, or whatever else, or whatever word you may choose. I don't personally get hung up on words because I've learned anything I might want to try to describe God as or use a name, there's going to be another name and a greater name or a better name. And we don't do things here our intention is not to separate ourselves from others, because we understand that there is one power. We understand that this is a large world with hundreds of countries and people who believe in the same spirit that we believe in, though they call it many different things. What we call it isn't so much important. But dwelling upon some of these ideas, what is the chief end? What are you looking to have in your life? And most people are to have peace and happiness. And again, John Calvin's answer was to enjoy God forever. So I like that. Affirmative living and praying is an attempt to feel a union with, a connection with the Spirit and the rhythm that permeates and fills the whole universe. If you slow down, you can get in touch with it. As you take that pause that I talk about so often, as you learn to live the affirmative life, you'll have many more of these types of moments of inspiration. All of this is a byproduct of becoming unified with life, right? Life begins to feel more like a celebration. So we must let go of the everyday worries and troubles that weigh us down. We want to try to release the need for despair and worry, and I know it's a vicious cycle when people are in it, because it seems like you stay focused on a problem and it goes round and round and round, and it's tough to let go of it. But that's really what, the work is to practice seeing the good even when the good is not evident, right? Release all these negative states. Because if you keep on doing that, all your hours and days will seem the same. We're human, Barker said, but we're much more than human, right? So let us commit ourselves to remember the truth about life and the power we have within, and the power that's ever available to us. We are here together at times questioning our purpose and what is ours to do in this world. You wake up and you're at a different point in your life, and a lot of things have happened. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of comings and goings, and it's sometimes easy to get lost and question where you are and come to the conclusion that life has been tough, too tough, and people lose their way. We might not ever know all the answers, but we're here now and we can live now, and we can live now with more joy and with a greater use of creative intelligence. It was Raymond Charles Barker who said, "Success in life, first of all, is less about what happens to us. It's more about how we respond to what happens." The first step, he thought, to success and ultimately happiness is to accept the responsibility for our lives. Louise would say the same thing. We're responsible for our lives. So we want to pay attention to what we say, what we do, how we feel. our dreams and our goals are up to us. So the universe denies us nothing. So it really, the thing to understand here is, light, how does it go? Like attracts like. So if your consciousness is high, if it's positive, not that it's going to be positive all 24 hours a day, but if generally your trend is towards positivity and positive expectancy, the universe is not going to deny you. Success is on us, and by that I mean it's on me to be happy. Even when things don't look particularly wonderful, the power is with you to set it all in motion. So if you want success and you want happiness, then you are responsible for initiating that. I remember years ago reading all things that are involving Benjamin Franklin, and one of the phrases that I recall, I'm sure you've heard it, is assume a virtue if you have it not. So if there's a deficit, and everybody has these areas that need work or attention or could benefit from work or attention, assume a virtue. If you're miserly, start giving. If you, whatever it is where you find, in your own personal meditations and inventories that you might be falling a little bit short, assume a virtue and start practicing it. Because life doesn't deny you, right? Life responds to you affirmatively. All of us, any of us, can make corrections and changes at any time that will pay, rather big dividends. We can bring in more love, greater health, greater prosperity, because we have all those things within us and the ability to bring them forth. I'm always reminded by an old friend of mine, the final chapter has not been written in any of our lives. So if you find yourself, you say, oh, Greg, it's too late, I'm such and such age, and then I'll say, no, it doesn't work that way. The final chapter has not been written. You've heard it said it's never too late to, well, a lot of things like that. Never too late to start your day over. It's never too late to have a happy childhood. All those messages are about starting here, starting now. It can begin to be different. So here we are. I'm invoking Raymond Charles Barker now. Good morning. We are alive and we're filled with spirit, he said. We are livingness. We're all in this universe alive. We're alive with action. And everything is alive, he would say with great fanfare. We used to think of a live body and you think of a creature that's walking, it's alive, and we would think of inanimate matter. And I'll contrast it. You think of a bull or a deer that's galloping along, or you look at a rock. So we used to think, well, the thing that's moving around is alive and the rock is like dead. That's the way I would have thought when I was younger. And in this teaching, we don't think that way, and Barker said it's not so anymore. We now know that this rock or this lectern is a living thing. On a molecular level, everything is it's filled with space and it's filled with energy, and it doesn't move unless we push it, but it's alive. Everything in the universe is pulsating with aliveness, with energy. We teach here that there is one life that's in everything, and that this life is the action of the one mind, one intelligence. Everything in this studio, this center, in your home, and all around you and beyond you is alive. There is intelligence. Everything has intelligence. Everything has motion. Everything has movement. So here we are in a massive aliveness. It's all activity and motion. Please try to get that. Everything you think of, it's alive. And so we're delighted to be alive, and we're pondering big ideas. Again, in this brief experience today on this call, we are awake and we're here. And in this brief experience of life, we are awake and we're here. We're surrounded by aliveness. Each of us are points of awareness in the very life of life. I hope you can get a sense of that. You can say, I am alive and I know that I'm surrounded by life. And then he invited us in his presentation to relax and take this into our mind, this idea of aliveness. So you might do that now. And think a few meditative thoughts. I'm alive. And I'm going to use his words. He'll say in the first person so that you bring it right in. So it's your own statement to yourself. You might say, I am immersed in divine livingness and aliveness. I am immersed in intelligence. I'm one with this presence, this intelligence. I am the recipient of it. I am an activity of it. I am grateful for the awareness I have. I am one with it and therefore valuable to the overall picture. My subconscious mind accepts this, and so it is. Those were, for the most part, his words on that wonderful morning when he was talking about the art of success or learning to be happy, emphasizing the art a little bit more than the science. First today, let us know the divine intelligence doesn't make mistakes. A lot of people will talk about, ain't it awful and all the mistakes that are happening in the world. And you can do that if you want to. But it won't take you places you want to be. The challenge for the religious scientist, the metaphysician, is to see the good. Sometimes it's a really big challenge. But he wanted to emphasize, let us know that the divine intelligence doesn't make mistakes. Therefore, we are not mistakes. You might have made 1,000 mistakes in your life, but you are not a mistake. We have freedom. That's the thing. Because free beings, we make choices, and as a result of our choices, we often err. You've heard, to err is human, and what? To forgive is divine. So it's better, I think, to think of ourselves as, being spiritual beings. And I always like the idea that we're here. It's like being in school. We're here to learn lessons. And as we learn the lessons, we grow, we evolve, and we change. And I love the idea that everyone is evolving at their own time and space. And I'm not here I don't have the time to take anybody else's inventory, truly. You hold everyone harmless and you wish them the best. And you have that kind of love for humanity and for yourself because, just as you have made mistakes while you're growing, everyone else has as well. And the last thing we need to be doing is judging other people because, we want to extend love and we know that they're evolving and we really want to embrace that kind of love for ourselves as well. Years ago, a great teacher said to me, remember, you're born at exactly the right time into the exact right set of circumstances. You're born on this planet at the perfect time to live in these times and to learn the lessons. And you're born for the experience of this day also. So if you're born in the 60s or 70s or 80s, you came in at the perfect time to the perfect set of circumstances, and you might disagree with that, but wherever you are and wherever you find yourself, it's the divine right place. If you find yourself on a call like this and all this seems strange or maybe it seems perfect, the message is for you. These are messages also that you can come back to and you can listen to on Facebook and YouTube. And the thing about these types of messages and also reading the material that we teach, we come back to them again, we hear them in a different way. Every time I read the textbook, which is like once every 3 or 4 years, because it's a textbook, it's not a novel, I'm in a whole different place and I see things in a whole different way. And just about everybody I've ever known who's read our text tells me the same thing. Barker was saying sometimes we live for the future, and he thought that was a bit of a mistake. It's one thing to have plans, but to always put yourself in the future will cause you to miss out on this holy instant, this moment. Sometimes we long for a future, or probably worse, we dwell on what it used to be like in our families or in our churches, and then we get caught up on, the past. And he says that The thing you want to do is bring yourself back into the present and get grounded in the present. And realize in this holy moment, in this new moment, you have everything in the world. And we remind ourselves and say to yourself, I am here now. And keep saying, I am here now. And then he had some affirmations. I am this livingness. I am this intelligence. I am this life. Now. And I know myself as this spirit now. And then I know I'm here, he said, to make a contribution to the overall good. Each of us in our own way. You might think your life is insignificant because you've told yourself that, but it's not true. I've said before, I hear, see Celia and different people here, you are 1 in a billion. And, we have this thing, we build up this thing from our childhood that I'm not good enough because we've been raised by people and we've absorbed messages. But each of us are really fantastic in the sense that we're unique and we're here to make some kind of a contribution to the overall good. And when you do that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be a president or a great, leader of some fantastic company or some nonprofit or, you're here to make a contribution. It could be to your loved one, it could be to your children, it could be to your wife, your husband, your partner, but you're here to make a contribution. Just some people just by extending warmth and kindness. We're not here just to get. If you're here just to be on the take, it's not going to work well. We're here to make a contribution to life. I think the greatest contribution we make is when we just take a pause. That's a phrase we started using a lot last year. When we take a pause and slow down enough to be mindful, slow down enough to be grateful for those of the people who we love and we appreciate, the people who support us. As I look around the room, we got Reverend Judith here. She's here most of the time, and Celia and different people, and then all you people who come on every week. I don't know all of you, but I know a lot of you now. You call for counseling, and it's a privilege to have the phone conversations, and it helps me feel connected with you. Be grateful for these people in your lives. Be grateful for your communities, your own families. I look around the room, and behind that wall there's a studio booth, and there's 2 guys in there that do all kinds of things to make sure that the show goes on here. We were a dying out congregation 5 years ago, and now we're not, and we've been on a steep learning curve here. We lost all of our tenants in the building, and it looked like we were going to, the stock market crashed, and things look pretty bleak. But we've renovated things, and we've turned things around. We've done a tremendous amount of work. And, behind the scenes, and nobody really appreciates it because they don't know it. They just expect that it's going to be there. So thank the people in your world. Jimmy's here. He's working all the time. This morning, he sent out a message like, I don't know how many, must have been 1,000 people at 7 a.m. Join us this morning. So I'm appreciative of Jimmy, but I don't express it probably as much as I should. But I was questioning whether he was going to get everybody mad at us this morning by sending the message so early, but it must have been successful because you're all here. So thank you, Jimmy. And we started out here a few years ago, again, with a building which was full of problems, and we're trying to figure out how to solve the problems as we learned how to navigate this digital world and bring our message forward during COVID, and it's been quite an experience. So I want to pass this on. Take that pause for a moment of gratitude. Look around in your own home, the people you love, and you don't, we all probably could say thank you to more people and express love and gratitude for them because they've all been really so important. And start there. That's my idea. I'm adding to Barker's talk because Barker was talking about adding the kindness and adding the warmth into the process because we talk about the law a lot. And we might say love points the way, which it does, but the law makes the way possible. And that might sound obscure to you. But really what he's getting at here is bring more kindness and a more appreciation into the process. So I thank you all for being here on the call, and the three guys in the tech room, including Jimmy, we want to extend our thanks to them, and all the other people. We also have a network of people who work on our social media, so we want to thank them too. So this is part of the science of success, is to bring in the kindness and bring in the love. The study of the science of success involves using the law, so we can achieve and receive. And Barker asked the question then, well, what does all this mean? Well, if we want to establish success in life, certain patterns in our subconscious mind need to be instilled that produce success. So not, you can think of a success pattern, right? If I'm going to be successful, probably I ought to be optimistic, right? Probably ought to be giving. If I think of, if an unsuccessful person is going to be doing things to trip themselves up all over the place, right? So learning to extend kindness and have, a positive mental attitude and going the extra mile, showing you care about people. And, I don't need to give you a list. You all know this. But so these are the things we do in our practice. We practice seeing the good. Even when things don't look good, our practice is to see the good. And he said there's something else. He said we use our intellect and we become more mindful. He said most of us who have used this teaching have made wonderful improvements because of the teaching. I can tell you if you hang out here for a couple of months, say 2 or 3, especially if you start attending the Thursday class. The Thursday class is entirely devoted to building you up. Building up your consciousness, because we break it down, we make it so simple. And Louise would say it's all very simple, it is. But the thing is, it doesn't happen without you doing something. So you want to learn to catch yourself in the conversations you're having. And by I don't mean the external ones as much as I mean the internal conversations, and start to turn that conversation around. Neutralize the negatives. And you can get into a more formal science mind class, which we do teach, and we will start a series again. And we'll tackle it head on. But what you're going to do there is you're going to work on neutralizing the negatives and replacing them with affirming ideas. So that's part of the art of success that Dr. Barker is talking about. And he reminds us there's always another side to it, which I just mentioned, and that's attempting to bring the warmth of life into it, extending the kindness and doing that more. Bring the warmth, understanding, bring that back into your heart, if you will. He said that's the art. He said now the world is geared to success. Everybody wants it, and he said it's attainable. You can have success. He said, but where people get it wrong is most people think about success, they think of it in terms of receiving. It's like, we all know some of the old churches. I can name them, you can name them. They have the big congregations. They pass the basket 20 times, and they have you signed up, so many ways. You can't even call in without there being an invitation to donate. I really don't want to be that kind of place here. So we will simply tell you, you can contribute if you want to. Today, Zelle, we gave you a new way. You can send us a check. We appreciate it. But we're not here for that. We know, as Raymond Charles Barker said, that we have a rich Father. And what he meant by that is we are supplied and supported. And people give as they can give, and life loves a giver. And Barker always said, give your happy money. Please don't give out of a sense of obligation, because if you need the money more, you keep it. Give it if you want to share it, because if you do that, what you're doing is you're putting it into circulation, which I'll talk about in a moment. Success, he said in these days, and probably more so now, the 2020s, leaves out warmth in a lot of cases. For most, it's tied into what they possess in terms of money, in terms of stocks, or in getting ahead, or in their profession, or their social circles, acquiring fancy things. And we teach abundance here, so we don't have an objection to this kind of success. But we know that that type of success, the financial trappings and evidence and all of that is not nearly the whole thing. We want to be sure that it's balanced because, we have the science, the law. You can demonstrate money. You can demonstrate success. I could teach you a business course and teach you how to demonstrate success. I've done that before. But what we want to do here is bring in the art and bring in the warmth, bring in a little bit more care, compassion, love, forgiveness. And we can start always right where we are with ourselves and say, I love, accept, and approve of myself exactly as I am. And begin to mean it. And look at yourself in the morning and say, hey, you're wonderful. Hey, I love you. And extend that success to others. We've had a couple, rough weeks at the center this past week. So, and I have to always be mindful. We can work sometimes here 8, 9, 10 hours a day, but we don't always find the time to remember, to celebrate one another. And that's really more important because the work will always be there. It just always will be. So I ask for myself and I ask for all of you just to be mindful of that this week. The guys have got the doors shut in the booth, but I'm talking to them too, Everybody's done a lot to bring everything to you week by week. Technical issues, other issues. So let's bring the love back into it. Barker went in to say, many people who have become successful through being tough and cold and using the toughest methods, not caring very much about people or their feelings, the environment, or anything else. See, that kind of success, you can have it, right? Because what you're giving up on all the good stuff in life, if that's the way you're doing it. He said you can have the same success in a much better way that would include much more warmth, affection, appreciation, understanding, love. You can level up to that. So that's our intention here that I wanted to bring forth today. And I want to do it more myself. That's where the art comes in. Many successful people are unhappy, and this is why. They've achieved a great deal, but there's not a lot of balance. They've been driven to the point where they don't have relationships with their children. They're married and divorced, and they're married and divorced, or they're maybe never even married, but because the overwhelming desire with a lot of people is just to acquire and achieve more. So then they wind up with an empty or a fairly empty emotional life, and we want to find a way to balance that out, and so we can have more warmth, a greater sense of connection and happiness in our life, as well as success. We often suggest for people to meditate, to journal, not for us, just so you can get in touch with your own feelings and find out for yourself maybe some of the things that you might, I know as I journal, and I thought, gee, I like to write. I've noticed that, and when I really do it, I like to write more. And when I journal more, I find out all the other things that I used to be fond of. Journaling is wonderful because it puts you in touch with things that, you've put off maybe for a long time. And I started painting and doing drawings and things after I did that for a couple of years. And, there's things that are in you that just get repressed just because your life moves fast. And let's get in touch, with the things that give us joy, whatever it might be. I know Shirley in the call a year or two ago told me she developed an interest in helping kids, so she started reading to kids and helping kids read. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be something that's going to set the world on fire, but it'll set you on fire with aliveness and love and warmth. Barker made a point in his talk that we're here for such a brief time, and I oftentimes say, this is not a dress rehearsal. And I look at my life now and I thought, well, I'm no longer 50. I thought, hell, I'm no longer 60. And then, life is like giving me a couple physical healing opportunities. I'm thinking, holy smokes, it's time for having appreciation. You might say, well, I don't have the health I used to have. And I'll say, it's true, I don't have the health I used to have, but I have health. And so I want to celebrate the health that I do have, right? Because if you can bring positivity and love into your life, you're going to heal a lot of conditions that are in your life. Our time on planet Earth is so brief. So we don't really have, well, you can duke it out if you want to with everybody and be miserable, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to see the good and to lift ourselves up and lift other people up. We have this divine spark. It's in us. You might not know that it's there, but most of you on the call know, there is. It was taught to me beautifully probably 40 years ago. The teacher said, there is that which is within you that knows. So you really only have to ask yourself some questions, and the universe is pretty quick with its answers. Usually immediate, but oftentimes within a day or two the answer is there. We have this divine spark to use. What did Theodore Parker used to say? It knows, and it shows, and it shows you the way. So what is it about you, that's wonderful? And I could say 1,000 things, and see, Judith would be there saying everything. See, but ask the question though, because there are a lot of people that are sitting there who don't think there's anything wonderful about themselves. I got a minister here who's telling me everything. Well, of course, but she's a minister. She's been studying this stuff. The question's for everybody else. What is it that's within you that's wonderful? And there's a lot of things. So start to acknowledge them. We want to find these things and let them become expressed and not repressed. Because sometimes we're in these corners and we're in these relationships and jobs and situations with our families, and we don't feel like we have a move, we don't feel we can express ourselves, and we just feel suppressed and repressed. So usually the universe will help you find a way to move towards greater freedom, because it's all designed for us to evolve and to express ourselves in greater freedom. Your success is likely to be different than what most people's success is, and the mistake is we look at what's on the radio. I'm going to sound like other people now, not the radio, but we look at what's on the billboards, and we look at what's in the magazines and what people think is successful. I've had a lot of those trappings in my life of watches and cars and homes and things, and it isn't that. I'm very clear on that. And there's nothing wrong with those things, but the success that people have is much different than what commercially is out there. And people try to fit in too much and repress themselves. And the thing is, you came here to shine in some way, and you have unique gifts, and they involve warmth and sharing, and they might involve art. They could be expression. They could be things you do. But take that pause and figure out what some of those things are that make you happy. There's something amazing or unique and special about each and every person, and it's really a worthy pursuit to find out what brings you to a place of happiness and joy. A suggestion today is try something new, possibly a simple adjustment. I know some of you in this room have taken a class recently. I'm always impressed because it's such a simple solution. For people, if you don't know how to use social media or your telephones or things like that, a couple of my friends have taken a class, or somebody's taken an art class, somebody's taken some type of a martial arts thing recently, joined a group. Do things to connect, and things that will bring you joy or pleasure. Each week on Thursday, I ask the question, what's it like being you? And only you know if you're happy, right? All of us want to be in a healthy place emotionally. So learning how to deal with old thought patterns is important, and it's the reason we talk about it so much. Because if we keep thinking the old thoughts, the ones that don't empower, we're derailing our success. We want to learn how to express emotion in creative ways, in safe and empowering ways. A lot of people don't express themselves, and they bottle up their emotions. One thing I learned from the 12-step programs 40 years ago was an old saying, a problem shared is a problem cut in half. It seems simple, but it's really good advice. If you're stewing in negativity and you're caught up in, ain't it awful, and you just have a lot of sadness, find an outlet for that. Pick up the phone and call somebody who's a true friend And yeah, we can do our prayer work and stuff, but if you find yourself in a loop of that type of thinking, please reach out or call the church. Just ask Jimmy, find Greg, I want to talk to him. Because, sometimes you just need to have somebody to listen to you a little bit and guide you and do an affirmative prayer. I mean, sometimes we need a lot more help than that, but it's a place to start. So find an outlet for these types of emotions if they're bottled up within you. Repressing feelings and stuffing your feelings won't bring happiness. Dr. Barker, when speaking on the subject, referred to a renowned doctor. I can't remember his name. And this doctor postulated that all disease seems always to be related to some type of congestion or a result of congestion. And then he said health is the result of circulation. So that's very simple. He's thinking disease, dis-ease, that's what Louise used to say, is the result of congestion in some form. So congestion could be, I've got a whole bunch of negative thinking, and it's producing what? Terrible circumstances in my life. And for that to break up, I need to circulate, more positive ideas. And Louise Hay said that in her book, You Can Heal Your Life. She said, we intend to keep at it, this practice, or maybe that was Barker. We intend to keep at practicing lifting our thoughts on high, because that kind of consciousness, that consciousness of positivity, will affect your body. We know that consciousness creates the body, maintains the body. It can make us sick, it can make us well, or anything else. We know that. So here again, we can take the time and apply our consciousness and our thinking, apply it to places. The congestion congestion he's talking about could be repressed emotions that we're having, anger, resentments, and all of that type of stuff. And potentially, if you hold it long enough, it can create situations in our body, dis-ease. And circulation, again, he thought creates the opposite, which he said is health. And he was quoting a well-known doctor at the time. People who are hurt, unhappy, bitter, are dealing with congestion because they're dealing with a misuse of emotion, and they're not letting things go. And most likely, they're circulating a lot of old thoughts. So you see, when this teaching originated back in the 1870s, the early teachers were often talking about divine love. Some would say God is love, God is source, the source is love. This was something really new at the time, because the teachings of most orthodox traditional churches before that time period didn't teach a God of love so much. It was more of a God of power and fear, and to a large extent. It was, the approach was approaching this higher power with fear. That was from ancient times. So New Thought brought in some new ideas. We don't have to appease God and win favor with God or the gods anymore. With New Thought comes a new idea. And the idea is that this power is creative, and it's beneficial, and it's good. It's alive, and it's unfolding. The idea is that it's not going to judge you. I'll say that again. As you come here, you're going to learn that God is not going to judge you. It's not going to send you anywhere. It's not going to power you. It doesn't sit in, it's not going to sit in judgment. It's not a power that keeps a list of your mistakes. What it is a power of givingness, divine givingness that's in you, and it's expanding through you and all around you. It is a power that gives itself without limitation, and it gives itself to everyone and everything. And as much as you can receive and be open to receiving, it will be poured into your life. Now, this givingness is in you, and it's in your thoughts, and it's in your emotions. Your emotions are a spiritual gift, as is your intellect. The thing is, we want to get our emotions and our intellect in balance as best we can. So we want to have our individual functioning at its highest level. Remember the quotation from a few minutes ago, that disease is a result of congestion and health is a result of circulation. So in order to have circulation, we want to be open to receive and also find ways to give. There's a need to be a balance here of giving and receiving. There's loads of ways for people to be a giver in your own family. You can start by saying thank you. I started the room with thank you, Judith. Thank you, Jimmy. We got Faisal back there. We got your thank you. It's just look around your room. There's people to thank. Just extend that love. Namaste. See, look at Jimmy. Send him some love. He looks like he could use a smile. Do it with one another, right? Extend that love in your own family and in the world. I have a friend, Pat, she smiles at everybody. I said, why do you do that? She said, I don't know what else to do, but I can smile at them. And, there's loads of ways to give. It isn't just about writing checks. There's loads of ways to be a giver. And the challenge is to find ways. Start giving. Because then what happens is there's an inflow and there's an outflow. As you're giving more comes around. And it's always in operation if you are good at the game of life and the art of success. He continued a little bit more that morning. This was Mr. Barker, and he said, I try to keep my mind free of negatives. And that's a big job. That can be a full-time job. I try to keep my mind free of negatives. I let go of resentments and anger. I just release the need for them. I want to develop the consciousness of seeing the good unfolding all the time. We want to have a lifting consciousness with a minimum of negatives. Ideally, a creative consciousness, has a minimum of negatives. So there's the art of it, which is to bring the love into it, because we know that life responds to us. It's the science of it, right? And he asked the question, will this apply to you tomorrow morning at 8 or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock when you're at your job? Will this apply to you here, there, and everywhere else? And he says, as soon as you're awake and you're off track, then you get back on track. He said, I want you to take a second now and give you a couple of good affirmations, and I'm going to share them. He said, these are things you can say to yourself. I am aliveness in this. I used to say, this is God in my life, wherever I found myself in a situation. I want to remind myself. He went on to say, I'm not just a body at work. I am an individualization of life, of spirit. He says, I'm the whole thing. He oftentimes said, I'm the whole bit. He says, if you say these things, they will energize you because you have established yourself in right relationship to the world around you. I am the whole thing. I am the aliveness of it. If you're on a subway or you're on a bus or you're by yourself, say to yourself, I am a total aliveness. I am a total consciousness. I am total love. And then if you can, I learned to do this. He said, say to yourself, I am beautiful. And when you think of yourself, or look at yourself in the mirror, say, hey, you're beautiful. Because he said there's a glory in every person, and there's a glory in you, and a glory in me. And it's been repressed for a long time, suppressed. He said, but let's don't do this anymore. Let's turn that around. Don't do that, and don't do all the other shoulds and negative command phrases either. Life in you is waiting to express itself in a greater way. Louise, who was greatly influenced by Raymond Charles Barker, was always speaking of the importance of circulation and the art of happiness with the message of loving yourself, telling yourself, I love you. So there's a message today from Barker and Louise. Tell yourself, I love you. Tell other people in your world, I love you. So look around the room and to your world and the people and send them that love. And Louise always added the emotion and the love and instructed us gently and lovingly to release all of the language from our earlier years and said it's time to let it all go and let the awareness of this energy in. Let this love enter your space, into your heart and your awareness, and extend it. When you do this, you are pure in heart. You will experience wellness, creativity, and more happiness. Barker added, there's a lot of unhappy people in the world, and it doesn't have to be that way. Suffering is not God ordained, so we have to find ways to express our emotions and our life so we can experience more joy. There is an art to being happy. Here is a powerful affirmation from Barker again, which might be good to keep. He said, I individualize the happiness of the creative process. I am one with it. I am one with the one. Whatever it is, it must enjoy its expression. I enjoy my self-expression. You enjoy your self-expression. We all enjoy our self-expression. That's essentially his message. He asked the question last. He says, I wonder how many people in the audience have ever thought of God as being happy. He said that would be new for the old religions. He said the power itself, which individualizes itself in you, is one of creative, joyous experience. And he said, I'd like to see if you can add 2 statements to your morning every day as a spiritual routine. Just 2. You pick the ones you want. He suggested, I am beautiful and I am happy. I am beautiful and I am happy. He said, you might have to grit your teeth at first, the first few times, because maybe you don't think that just yet, but maybe you want to assume that virtue, as Franklin used to take. Assume it, the virtue till you have it. And people might think you're crazy, so you might want to do this one alone. You say to yourself, I am beautiful and I am happy. But remember the power of the spoken word. Remember, a great teacher once said, I don't care what a person puts in his or her mouth. It's what comes out of their mouth that is important. What you think and speak and feel are important. You are a living expression of spirit. You are living expressions, individualizations of spirit. We can go back to Freud's axiom that we were created to express ourselves, to live, and whenever we repress, we congest. That doesn't mean just go out and do anything you want. This power for good can be used and directed. We start with a realization of one life and only one life, and this will bring a calmness and a peace and a sense of connection. It will be pleasant, and we can learn to creatively express ourselves from this place of calm connection. Most people wear all kinds of masks, as we talk about every week, from the time they're children, and they keep trying to be acceptable to others and win approval. And when we do this, often we're stuffing our feelings and we're losing bits of ourselves. A lot of times shame enters the picture and we don't feel great, we don't feel good. We don't want people to see our cracks. A lot of people are not in touch with themselves. A lot has been repressed and congested. So this is a teaching that encourages you to find out what makes you happy and move towards that and to let go of the things that are holding yourself back. So Barker said we came up with a simpler technique, affirmative prayer. It's a lot more simple than psychiatry. When we think from the heart, we're dealing with the art. So he's asking us today to bring more love into the picture, express gratitude more often. You can say, I love you to people many, many, many times and bring that into your daily routine. If you're only using your intellect, you're dealing with the science. And then he added, as a person thinketh in his or her heart, so is he. So bring in that warmth, extend it. We are wanting more than the science. We are wanting a balance of the feeling, the understanding, the love inside. For this balance, we need to give and receive love. So that's about winds up it. Let me see if he has other notes here for us. I gave you his affirmations. He said, when there's a give and take in your life, where there's giving, more love, and there's a projection, there will be a response. Where there's a livingness that is not congested, it's circulated, it gets healthy. Everything is functioning in better order. So let's always be open to receiving, but also let's find the ways and means to give of our time, our effort, our talents, or our money if we can. Let's learn the language and the art of the heart and express love and kindness more. Just say thank you and express it more, and I love you. You might start out with the smiles and thank you, and don't forget to tell people you are wonderful. I love you. I used to get that from Reverend Theodora every single week I saw her. You're wonderful, and you know I love you. And you could do more of that. I could do more of that. I've counseled a lot of couples over the years, and one of the questions always to the other person is, how long has it been since you told the other person or the partner that you love them? Barker said people need that. The minute you take a person for granted, you're going to start to lose that person. And he said, I don't care what kind of relationship it is. It doesn't matter. The minute you take another person for granted, watch out. So if we live more in the awareness of love and express that love and appreciation, there will be no congestion, there will be health and happiness. So we are wonderful people and we're beautiful. And let's start extending that appreciation we have to one another. So ends this morning's lesson.